The morning had barely begun when an elderly man wearing a slightly faded kurta, dusty sandals, and tired eyes that carried years of struggle stepped into a grand glass-walled car showroom. Sunlight, hitting the polished tiles, made the place look like a palace of metal and luxury. Every car shone like a masterpiece. Every corner whispered wealth, and yet the moment the man entered, the entire atmosphere shifted. A few customers looked at him with raised eyebrows, as though wondering what business someone so simple had in a place like this. The staff exchanged quick glances, smirked quietly, and one sales executive walked over with the stiffness of irritation rather than service. Within minutes, as the man gently placed his hand on the hood of a car he admired, he was asked to step outside, because this space is for customers, not for people looking for shade or free air conditioning. No one knew that the man they were insulting owned the very ground the showroom stood upon, and what followed next would change their lives forever. If you believe kindness and second chances can change the world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support encourages more real, emotional stories like this. The man named Iqbal quietly stepped out without arguing. His humility was so natural that even humiliation didn't disturb the calmness of his smile. But inside him, an old wound reopened, the memory of being treated as less. Because of appearances, he had built his life from nothing, starting as a mechanic who worked in the scorching heat fixing punctures and rusty engines just to afford his next meal. Everything he had achieved, the land, the businesses, the respect, had come through decades of hardship. But standing outside the showroom he owned, being thrown out like he didn't belong, made him silently reflect on how easily people judge others behind him. The showroom buzzed with pride over what they thought was order. Restored the manager, a man with expensive suits and an ego even shinier than the cars, walked out arrogantly and told his staff to focus on real buyers. He didn't realize that his words were drifting straight to the ears of the silent owner standing just a few steps away. For a moment, Iqbal considered walking away, keeping his identity hidden. But something within him whispered that this lesson needed to be taught, not to embarrass them, but to remind them that humanity is worth more than any luxury car. He left calmly, only to return later that afternoon. But this time in a convoy of black SUVs accompanied by 2 board members of the company that rented his land. The staff noticed the commotion and scrambled to look disciplined. The same manager who had dismissed Iqbal earlier came running with a forced smile, believing a VIP customer had arrived. But when the SUV door opened and Iqbal stepped out wearing the same simple kurta, the manager's smile froze. His face drained of color. The staff looked confused until one of the board members announced loudly that the man they threw out was the landowner and business partner of the showroom. A silence, heavier than shame, washed through every corner of the massive hall. The manager's knees almost buckled as he stuttered apologies, speaking without air, without dignity, without any of the arrogance he had displayed earlier. But Iqbal did not raise his voice. He did not insult. Instead, he looked around at everyone from the cleaner to the senior staff and said something that struck their hearts more deeply than anger ever could. He told them that wealth doesn't always wear branded clothes, and respect should never depend on appearance. He reminded them that every customer deserves dignity, whether they come in torn shoes or expensive suits, because you never know someone's story, their journey, their pain, or their worth. The staff felt the heaviness of their mistake. Some lowered their heads, others whispered apologies, and a few simply stared in guilt, realizing how shallow their judgment had been. But Iqbal wasn't there to punish. Instead of firing the manager on the spot, something he had every right to do, he said he would give everyone a chance to learn. He instructed the board members to implement a training program focusing on humility, empathy, and real customer service. His voice carried the weight of experience, not authority, and that made his lesson unforgettable. Days passed, and the showroom changed in ways no one expected. The staff became gentler, kinder, more attentive. They no longer scanned customers' clothes before offering help. They greeted everyone equally, learned to listen without assumptions, and even built a small section with water and seating for workers, travelers, and poor passers-by who needed rest. They called it the Humanity Corner, a tribute to the day they learned the true meaning of respect. As for the manager, he transformed the most. He approached Iqbal one evening, tears glistening in his eyes, and confessed that the lesson he received was the most profound of his life. He said he grew up believing wealth defined worth, and he had judged people from that mindset. Iqbal placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and told him something. His father once told him, "A man is rich not by the money he holds, but by how he treats those who have nothing." Those words stayed in the manager's heart forever. The story spread throughout the city like a warm fire in winter. People admired Iqbal, not because he was rich, but because he had chosen compassion over revenge. Customers visited the showroom and found not only cars, but an atmosphere of genuine kindness. Workers and laborers praised the Humanity Corner, calling it a blessing. And many said the incident restored their faith in goodness. Months later, on a quiet afternoon, Iqbal stood outside the showroom again. This time the guard greeted him respectfully, offering him water and a warm smile. The manager personally guided him inside, showing him new models, but more importantly, showing him how deeply the place had changed. Iqbal felt a sense of peace, not pride, because he hadn't just corrected a mistake. He had planted a seed of humanity. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps us bring more real, emotional, life-changing stories to the world. Before you go, tell us in the comments, should appearances ever define someone's worth?